Hello everyone and welcome to the live coding session provided to you by LiveChat developer program. My name is Maciek and I will be your host today. You can follow me on the GitHub and the Twitter. You see the handles for my accounts on the screen. And before we start, I would like to talk quickly about our support for the Ukraine, official support as a company. We have already decided to donate 1 million PLN to the Polish humanitarian action. And additionally, we have done some coding and some other work to support as a software company. And I would like to quickly show you how we as developers and we as a software company can help in such situations. So one of the example is our new volunteers.livechat.com website, where we have posted information about all people from our company that can help and volunteer using their technical knowledge and skills for the non-government organizations. Second example is a newly created app inside the marketplace called Support Ukraine, which allows basically the license that is we link to a dedicated chat booster to the Chat Widget, as also a footer replacing our traditional Powered by LiveChat trademark. And configuring both of them, they are linking to our newly created landing page, livechat.com/supportukraine, where we are officially saying our statement about the support, as also we are listing the non-government organizations that we are helping. So as you can see, there are plenty of possibilities to like actually help and then work as a software developer and as a software company, as a volunteer to help in such situations, to use the knowledge, also the knowledge that we are going to learn today to help other people. All right, so I think we can move next to the plan for today's session. First of all, we will cover three separate topics, but we will handle them together, build one application that will use all of them. It will be, we are going to use mainly the Chat Widget adapters to create a website with the LiveChat Chat Widget embedded in it in a really easy way, thanks to the Chat Widget adapters project. Next, we will use the concept of rich messages inside the Agent app using Agent app SDK to send those rich messages, which we will later use to integrate them to trigger custom actions inside the website that we are going to build with the Chat Widget. So we will be able to use Chat Widget to add some custom actions on the website. Yes, and basically we were going to build this app with those three pieces together. And last but not least, we will done a quick Q&A session at the end of the live stream. But of course, we are live, and you are feel free to leave your comments on the chat. I see the chat, so I will try to react on your questions. And of course, we have some people from via the LiveChat account that will respond to you on the chat also. All right, and quickly before we start, I would like to encourage you to join our dedicated LiveChat for Developers Discord server, where you can learn more and talk with other developers for our program, and also talk with us with the LiveChat team, ask some questions, share your ideas, and just talk and be around on the server together. And second thing, we also encourage you to join actually the developer program if you don't joined already. If you are new here and you want to build your first app, feel free to join the developer program and start building your applications like the one that we are going to build today. All right, so I think that's it. So we are going to start. Just as an explanation, I am currently in the agent app, LiveChat agent app, signed into my empty test production license, where I am going to set up the application and then the chat, and I will also integrate the chat widget from this license. So to begin with, I'm going to create a new project using the npm create method. I will use the Next.js framework. It is a React-based framework, which is like allows to do a lot of things like quicker and easier thanks to built-in support for example, file-based routing, which will help us today as we are going to use two separate pages, and also gives us a lot of optimizations out of the box. So it is simple as running the npm create next app, and we will name it coding session. Which will bootstrap the new applications automatically and install all dependencies. As you can see, React, React DOM, and Next itself, as also some development dependencies. All right, so we are going to cd into this project and open it in the editor. Can actually close the terminal now, and we have here a new bootstrapped Next.js application. I will run it quickly. Just switch the node version. All right, so we should be able to see the application on the localhost 3000, and it is the bootstrapped Next.js application. All right, so we are actually going to remove a lot of things from here. We don't need a lot of them. First of all, we don't need today API routes, but if you are curious and wondering, you could use actually the API routes from Next.js for the webhooks, chat and app webhooks from our developer console. It will be a really good use case to like additionally add this layer of integration to the same application. All right, so I'm going to the index page, so like the home page, and I'll actually remove everything from here, which was added by default, and we will just simply render something like hello message here. And additionally, going to the app, which is like the main component in Next.js, which wraps and renders actually the component by the file. So if you don't know Next.js, the file-based routing works like this. We have a directory called pages, and each file is associated with the page, with the route, with the file name. So if we have index.js, it will be our home page, and this special dash app component is the component that is first component that is rendered, and it gets a reference to the component from the actual page. So if we go to the index, this my app component will get this home component as component here. So basically each like global setup we can done here, and each page individually we can build in each file. Yes, I see the question for increasing the size of the code editor. I will increase it now. Just tell me if it is okay. All right, so I will save it, and we should see the hello message. All right, so we have removed those. We don't also need this home module, that's CSS. We don't use that. All right, so just add a little bit of basic styling. I will just use some sans serif font here, right, and I will need to, yes, I have removed that. Import, like for example, the global styles is a great example of using it inside the app component. All right, so now we have a sans serif font. Great. So the first step will be to actually start with the homepage. This is our homepage, and we would like to have the chat widget from the license that I have showed you in the agent app. So we will use the chat widget adapters project. You can read about them inside the documentation under the chat widget adapters here in the introduction or in the specific adapter site. We are going to use the React adapter as we are using the React inside the Next.js framework. And following the instruction, we need to install the LiveChat widget React package. So let's do that in separate integrated terminal. All right, so switch the node version. Actually embedding the chat widget is as simple as importing from the LiveChat widget React package the LiveChat chat widget component. We will a little bit edit this part to like actually have some wrapper component, not this one. This h1 with hello. All right, and here we will add our LiveChat chat widget. And now I will just save it and we'll see what happened. Actually, we will see an error. Yes, from the chat widget adapters package, it says that license property is required, and it is one and only property that is actually required because we need the license ID to know to which LiveChat license we need to connect. And to grab one, you just need to go to the channels section website, install LiveChat code manually, and here we have the license ID provided. You can just select it and copy to the editor. So we will provide it as the license property like this. I will additionally set the group as I have the English language set up on the group 0, so I would like to make sure that I'm actually loading this group. All right, and that's it. We have the LiveChat chat widget on the website. How easy is that? Just install and package and import it, import a component and render inside an app. All right, so now as we have the widget, we would like to build something more on the website, as currently just says hello. So we will create a simple modal, a button that will trigger a modal to register to our, let's say, newsletter. So I'm going to use our LiveChat design system for that. You can check the documentation on the LiveChat GitHub IO design system or directly on the NPM website on the package site. So I'm going to install to the project the LiveChat design system. All right, and now I'll import from the LiveChat design system a button component, actually button, and I'll need also a model. But if we will just render it like that. Let's say click me and go to the website. You see just regular ordinary button, and you may think like what's going on. We actually need to additional import these CSS styles for this design system. It's done like that because we are distributing it as a framework agnostic and React design system. So if you want to not use it with the framework, you can use directly those styles. So, but when you use it in React, you also need to import those styles. So we will use this approach from the CSS file. I'll go to our global styles and just paste this import statement for the CSS. And now we can see the actually nice looking button. I think I can zoom it a little bit. All right, so we have styles, we have design system here. So we are going to build a model. So it will be the model itself. There will be some content, and it will have an onClose method, but we are currently not using it. And just like that, we have a model, all right, with the content. And inside of it, we would like to actually like conditionally render it, not like always display the model when someone enters. So we are going to use some React state, like typical React programming here. We will create a new state called is modal open, and set is modal open, which is use state false. As initial value, we will not show the model, and let's just render it conditionally. So if this model open is false, we will not render this component, which is at the initial, so we don't see this. All right. So now we would like to like actually give the user possibility to open it. So let's quickly create a handle open modal function, which will for now just simply set the state to true. So we'll open it, and a similar function can actually duplicate this one and just say that we want to handle close modal and say false. All right, and for the button click me, we will say open modal, and on click it will call handle open modal, and here instead of this empty function we will use handle close modal as an onClose prop. So now we should be able to click the open modal. We see the modal with the content and the close button, which is calling the onClose. The function passed us onClose property. We should close it. All right, so we have a modal, and we can quickly expand the actual content of it. So we will build something like the newsletter form where you can paste your name and email and subscribe. So we will need additionally from the design system a form and form group and the input field. If you just don't know which components do you want to use and how to use them, you can always check the documentation. And for example, if you're going to use the form, I can quickly search for form and like see in examples and view the React implementation. Or if I'm not using React, I can see the HTML implementation where you only can use CSS classes. So we are going to use this form together with the form group and the input field to create like the basic form with 2 inputs with labels and text inputs. So let's do that now. It will go here. So we are going to have the form with one form group where we are going to have two input fields. First will be a let's say name, and the second one will be an email. This one will be input of type text, and the second one will be input of type email. All right, so and we also can specify the label text as the input field component, as you can see here, is not only the input itself, but it also has some additional props to display, for example, label. If you provide the text as a label text, it will display the actual label element for this input, so it is pretty convenient. We can also provide a description, which is displayed here with this subtle text. So we'll use the label text and say name, and with the email, we'll say email. All right. And inside our app and the modal, we have the modal with this simple form name email. And we can additionally add a, let's say, submit button. We can use actually additional prop of the form component itself. It has something like a form footer property, which accepts a React node, React element, which will be displayed at the bottom. So you can add here a button component, which we already know and have imported, with subscribe action, as this is a subscription form. And we can also use about title, yes, title, and here subscribe the newsletter title. Let's see how it looks now. Right. Guess shouldn't. All right. Some reason this is not displaying the title. Probably this is the wrong property. I will quickly use the documentation for that. Yes, it probably is not called like that. Props methods, label text. Let's try it. Oops. All right. Okay, it was a label text. My mistake. Okay, so we have the form with the title, subscribe the newsletter. We have a name, email field, and subscribe button. We are not, of course, going to implement the actually newsletter mailing service here. So this button, as for now, as for this coding session, will not do anything special. But we can feel the use case that we have the website with the subscribe the newsletter form inside the modal. And this website have the integrated chat widget on it. And if we look closer to how it looks, if we click the chat now button, we actually have a pre-chat form here, which also asks for the name and email, the same as our subscribe newsletter. And if someone have already started the chat with our support agents and have provided his name and email, and later he would like to also subscribe to our newsletter, it is really we can be really sure that actually he will need to use the same name and email as in the pre-chat in the chat widget. So it will be very nice to like actually pre-fill those values with the ones that he already have pasted to the pre-chat, which we do now still using the adapters, chat widget adapters package. We have previously imported the component, which is like the main thing, which allows you to render the actual chat widget. But we actually export from this package, and you can import them. The set of React hooks, in case of the React adapter, we have a set of hooks. And for example, we have a use widget customer data hook, which will allow you to, let's say, customer is equal to use widget customer data, and just like that we will have a customer object which will contain a email, name, ID, information about if it is a returning customer, status, and it's his session variables. All of this information will be coming automatically from the chat widget embedded on this website, as also this whole object of customer that is returned from this hook is actually a React state. So whatever some data of this customer will change during the application lifetime and the chat widget lifetime, we will internally react on those changes by updating this internal React state, which is returned from it. So it will automatically make the component that is using this hook re-render and use the fresh customer object with the fresh information. So we can use now this customer to prefill inside this modal a default value, not default check, the default value for the name by customer customer name, and we will do the same for email. We will say customer.email. And now when we refresh the page and we chat now, let's say we are a John Doe with the mail john.doe at example.com, and we open this modal, we see that actually we have prefilled data. We have name and email coming from the chat widget. Of course, the user can edit it before subscribing, but we don't enforce him to provide redundant data if we already have them provided to the chat widget. So we can, using the chat widget adapters, we can not only embed the chat widget on the website, but also grab some data from the chat widget to use them on our website. All right, so now, of course, this is great, but how about the contextual actions? What I mean by that is if someone started a chat with our support agent and provided his data, and he's chatting like, hello, I have a problem. Maybe during the conversation, the problem will be resolved and the customer will be happy by the support and he actually liked the product. So he would like to subscribe to the newsletter. But this thing comes from the contextually from the conversation, and it will be very nice that the support agent can actually provide and suggest this action of subscribing to the newsletter if the customer is willing to. So the customer don't need to look around and find this button. In our simple website, it is easy to find, but on the larger, more sophisticated websites, it can be a little bit harder, and actually it is yet another thing that the customer and user would need to do to find this button. So we would like to have a way for the agent to actually give the possibility to trigger the same action that we are doing by this button on the website, so opening the modal from the chat widget. So for example, we would have some kind of button inside the chat widget that can be sent by the agent to open the modal on our website. So use the interface, the UI interface of the chat widget to actually trigger some actions on our websites. And the question is if it is possible. Of course it is, because we are here and we are going to learn about it. But it requires some preparation before we can actually do that. as for now, we were operating around this index homepage, but now and inside this like standalone website. But now we need to move inside the context of the agent app because we are interested in the support agent perspective. If we want to allow the support agent to send such interactive element that will trigger this model, we need to first provide a way for the agent to like actually send this element. And one of possibilities to do so is to use our agent app SDKs. You can read, of course, about it on our documentation. And we have a few possible, as we tell, widgets. We have a details widget, we have a message box and a full screen widget. We are interested in the message box as it is closely closely related to actually conversation, as the message box integration is directly displays inside this element. This is the message box. So here we have some built-in buttons, and by creating a message box widget, we can add our own button. Which will open our app. So let's build such application, a message box integration. We will first need the actual app that will be hosted inside this integration place. We can use already existing application, this Next.js React application. Thanks to the Next.js file-based routing, I can just create a message box.js file inside the pages and quickly create a new React component for this page called message box, which will, as for now, return just let's say hello message box. Okay, and using this file-based routing, we can go to the hostname / message box, and we should see the hello message box text being rendered in our application. So go to / message box, and we indeed see the new page hello message box. So this page will be our internal of our application that we are going to embed inside the agent app as a message box integration. But how we can integrate this URL and tell agent app to display our app, our page inside the message box. To do so, we need to go to the developer console of our developer program. If you're signed in to the developer program or you have already a LiveChat license, you can go there by going to the developers.livechat.com and click the Go to Console button, or go directly by developers.livechat.com/console. And here we can create a new app as simply as clicking here on the name your app field. We will call it LCS as live coding session. I'll click continue. I'll quickly generate random image so the app will have some icon to don't look weird inside the agent app with broken image. And now this is like the bootstrapped empty developer console application. And after naming it and optionally adding an image, first thing that we want to do is go to the building blocks and decide from which parts we want to build this actual application. In our case, we are interested in message box integration, which we know is part of the agent app widgets, which we know from the documentation. So we can click on the agent app widgets building block and get started. And here we can choose one of those 3 available widget placements. And as we know, we are interested in message box placement. So we'll click on that. And here, the only thing that we need to provide is the widget source URL, which will be the URL for our application or web page that we want to display inside this integration place. If I'll just copy this and paste here, you can encounter this type of validation error where the developer console says that you need to enter a valid URL and it needs contains an HTTPS, which means that we enforce using the secure protocol. And you have two ways to actually handle this problem while developing the application. You can set up your local SSL certificates and serve your application from the local host from the HTTPS protocol, but it can be hard to do so. And there is actually a much quicker way to grab a secure HTTPS URL for your local host application, and we are going to use it now. Show you how to do that. I will just go to the integrated terminal here, and I will use the tool. It's a free-to-use tool. They have paid plans, but you can feel free to use the free plan, and it will be enough. Called ngrok, which is like a tool which opens HTTP tunnel between your machine and the port you have specified on your local machine, and their servers, and they will give you a unique URL with the secure protocol, which will proxy the traffic coming to this URL through their servers inside your local server. So I'm going to tell ngrok that I will start it on the HTTP, and I'm using the port 3000 because this is the port I have hosted my local application. And if I start it, I'll get this randomly generated domain, which, as you can see, actually redirects behind the scenes to my local host application. And I can also go to the message /message box as previously. All right, and everything works, but now we have like the public domain with a secure HTTPS protocol, so we can use it inside of developer console. All right, let's continue. And now it is saved. And that's actually all we need to set up as for now. And the only thing I will do now is go to the private installation tab, which allows you to install your application that you're developing on your license privately before actually publishing to the marketplace, because of course we want to check that everything works before going to the to public and to marketplace. There's an option for private installation, so I just simply click install app, and now it should be installed on my license. I'll go to in agent app or to settings and manage apps, and now if I refresh the page, this newly created app should be listed here, and here it is as private apps, and it is installed, as you can see here. All right, but how we can use this application? So let's go again to the chats. The previous chats has already closed, so let's go back to our page and start the chat again. And here is the chat, and now here we wanted to have our own button, and here it is. We have our own button inside the message box with the tooltip displaying our application name as also the icon. And now if we click it, we will see the name of the application, and actually instead of the text area, the whole message box now displays our page that we have built previously, the hello message box. Okay, but we cannot do much more with this static content, so we would like to add some interactivity, and we are focused on adding the possibility to actually send something that will allow the customer to click a button and then open the modal. This is our goal. So what is this thing that we can actually send via message box integration to the chat? Regular messages contains only the text, so there's no place for buttons. but actually we have something called rich messages, and they are rich because they contain more than just text. They can contain actually a lot of things, like for example buttons and images, and actually they have formatted text like title and subtitle. And you can read more about rich messages yet again on our developerslive.com documentation under Chat Widget rich messages. And here you have the brief description about all possible rich messages types, like basic card or card carousel or quick replies to provide customer with predefined answers. And we can also see here some ready-to-use templates. For example, if we use such payload as a rich message, we should see inside the chat this kind of card with the title, subtitle, image, and single button. So as you can see, this looks like something that could be useful here, because we have a way to send not a message but a rich message which will contain a button, so we can use later somehow to open this model. So let's implement this functionality to actually allow our agent to send from this view this rich message to the chat. So how to do that? We're actually going to use yet another package, LiveChat package. This time it will be LiveChat Agent App SDK. All right, I'll need to wait a little bit for installation. Okay. So we have Agent App SDK installed. All right. So if we look on the documentation page about Agent App SDK and on the message box, we see that we can import from the LiveChat Agent App SDK package a function called create message box widget. And by looking at the code example, we see that it is asynchronous function because it returns promise. So as it is stated here, so we need to await it or attach a then callback to actually grab the widget instance, because calling this function will actually create a connection between our application and LiveChat Agent App, which will then allow us to call some methods on this widget instance, which will be actually triggered on the agent app. Like for example, if we see on the methods for the message box widget, we see that we have put message methods. So if we will successfully connect with the agent app and get this widget instance, we should be able to call widget.putMessage, and there we will be able to pass this rich message payload which we were looking at previously here, and that should allow us to send this message. So let's try it out. According to the documentation, we need to import create message box widget. As you can see, we have three types of widgets, three dedicated functions to actually create appropriate widget. So it is important to make sure that if you build an app which is a message box integration, you're actually creating a connection as message box widget, not as, for example, full screen widget, because otherwise it will not work. So those two needs to match your integration type and the actual function from the Agent App SDK package. All right, so we are inside the React application. So if we need to handle a asynchronous functionality inside the React component, we should actually need to handle some side effects. So we will import a use effect, and additionally I will also import the use state because it will be helpful. I will explain later. We'll use effect, which will actually trigger our create message box widget. We don't have any dependencies for this effect, so let's call create message box widget, and when it resolves, so then as a callback, we will get the actual widget, and here we have this widget instance, and we should be able to trigger those methods. But calling all of them and implementing this logic that we need to handle inside this callback, inside this effect, looks a little bit like clunky and hard to for example, integrate with some other UI elements. Instead, what we would like to do is to grab this widget instance and preserve it so we can use it later. We can do this inside the React by using state or ref. We will use the state because we will also use the fact that this widget is not set or is set after initialization to display a loader. So we cannot do much without this widget instance inside our application. So we don't actually want to display anything more than the loader while this application is connecting with the agent app. So we will have this state set widgets equals to use state null. So the initial value will be null. And here we will say set widget to widget. So when they both will be connected, we get this instance, and we call set state, set widget state with this widget. So now this widget will be defined as an message box widget object. And we can also use this widget, as I have said already, to prevent rendering actual application content. And we will use here yet again a design system and loader component from it. So we can say size, I believe large. So while the widget is null, so from the beginning until it will be initialized, we'll render this loader component. Otherwise, if it is defined, we will render the actual application. And let's add a little bit of UI here, more UI here. So we are going to render a button, additional button here. Use send newsletter message, for example, and we will use like, I don't know, secondary kind. All right, so let's see. We have done some things here. We need to restart the application because Next.js is crashing inside this hot module reloading of the Next.js is crashing inside iframe. So I need to close the application and open it again. And as you can see, after the app is loaded, we see quickly the loader. They both connected, so we have the content itself. And now we have also this button. All right, so we know that we have proper connection, we have the widget instance, and we have this button, and we would like to put this message according to the documentation on the actual button click. So let's define this function handle put message, for example. We will call it button click handle put message. All right, and here we will use widget put message, and we can look at the documentation of the rich messages and grab some example. Let's use, for example, this sharing knowledge with customer example. So I'll grab this rich message payload. Let's define it outside of the components, so it will be constant rich message. All right, so we should be able to just say put message rich message, and let's see how it works now. We'll restart the app inside the message box. Let's wait until it is loaded. And I would like you to look at this send button. It is now disabled because we don't have any content to send to the customer, but I'll make sure that the chat is actually running. But when we will click this button, we see that this send button is activated because we have put the message, but actually agent needs to confirm to send it. So when we click the send, we have sent the rich message. And on the customer side, we see also this rich message. And when we click the open link, we see the moment drawer with the example .org website. So we see exactly the same rich message as we see on the documentation. So everything works. We know how to send rich messages from the message box from the agent app. All right, so before we go further, I would like to a little bit tweak the behavior because we know that when we put this message, it is already put, so we probably shouldn't allow to like click multiple times. So let's cover quickly that use case. The put message itself is actually additionally also asynchronous, so you can make sure and await the fact that this message actually was received by the agent app and put it inside the message box. And we will use that to additionally have a is, let's say used and set is used state, React state, initially to false. And when it is putted, we will set is set is used to true, and we'll use this is used state value as the disabled prop value for the button. So now I will reopen the application, wait for application load, and now when we click it, actually I will need to refresh the app because I have already something put it inside the message box. The button is active, so to better see how it works, we'll start with the fresh example. The button is grayed out. We open the app, we click use send newsletter message, and the button is blocked because we already have something put inside the message box, and we click send. The rich message is actually sent. All right, so we have that part covered. We are sending the rich messages. So now the last part that we actually want to cover, as we have this to quickly recap, we have this model on our website to subscribe to newsletter, which we are prefilling with the customer data. But the last step we want to do is to somehow connect the fact that user will be clicking this button with the action of triggering this model. But before we do that, just let's quickly adjust this rich message so it will more reflect what we are doing here. So let's say newsletter subscription as title and subtitle, subscribe to our newsletter to get fresh news. We'll also want to change the postback ID because now we are setting it as open URL, but if we look closely to the LiveChat widget React Chat Widget adapter, by looking into documentation, we can see that here under the props, we have something called on rich message button clicked. So we have a rich message, we have a button inside of it, and we are interested in listening on the fact that user have clicked the rich message button. So it looks like exactly what we want to use. And as we can see, the reach message button clicked function gets a event ID and postback ID. And event ID is the button's owner event ID. So the actual reach message is the event inside the chat, and this is this event ID. But also we have the postback ID, which is exactly this postback ID that is defined here. So whatever we will put here, we can get from the chat widget as a callback called on reach message button clicked. So we can use that to actually respond on this callback and check if this is actually this one button, the subscribe newsletter button, to do trigger some actions on our application. So let's call this, instead of open URL, a subscribe newsletter postback ID. I'll save it and go to our home page, and here use this on reach message button clicked callback. Here we have a button reference, and we can say that if this button that postback ID is equal to subscribe newsletter, which is the same ID we have used while defining the payload of the reach message, let's handle the open model. All right, we will need to actually resend this message now, because while it is already sent, this payload is baked inside the chat. So we need to, after we have changed the payload, we need to send it again. I'll just quickly make sure that we have updated. Yes, we have updated the title, subtitle, all right. And we can also change the text of the button to not open link, but subscribe. All right. So let's send once again this reach message. Now it is formatted to match our sorry, not that part. It's now formatted to match our use case, newsletter subscription, and when we call subscribe, we have actually achieved what we wanted to. So we see this subscribe the newsletter modal opened as a response to the clicking on the subscribe button inside of Chat Widget. Isn't that great? But we have still a little bit of going on here. As you can see, is not only we have opened the modal, but also we have opened yet again this moments drawer here, and also the chat widget is still open, which maybe we don't want to. Maybe we would like to minimize it when we have the full screen view like the modal. So let's quickly adjust that. First, the moment view is shown because this specific rich message that we have used uses button of type web view. And if we go here inside the documentation, we can see that elements button type, the type value, if it is a web view, it opens a moment. If it will be a message, it will be sent message. URL will open given URL inside the new tab, and phone will make a phone call from the chat widget, for example, on a mobile phone. All right, so we would like to get rid of this web view type, so the chat widget will not open the moments drawer. So by looking at the documentation, we see that it might have the following values, but actually it don't need to. So you can provide a custom type. Actually, if it will not be one of those values that chat widget can handle, it will just don't do anything. So we will say to custom to explicitly describe this, that we want it to be custom, and we want the chat widget to don't respond by itself to this action because we are handling it by ourselves. And we can value is required, but we can change it to something like a subscribe newsletter, for example. So similarly like postback ID, not the URL. and we don't need those additional properties for the web view. All right, so let's quickly resend this message to the customer. And now this close the moment drawer. The fresh one, actually, we still have the functionality, this custom functionality we have implemented, but now the chat widget doesn't do any additional action as we don't want it to, because we are handling it on our own. So let's add this last step of actually minimizing the chat widget to like more align with the design that we have this full screen modal, so we don't want any additional overlay elements like the chat widget to be open at the same time. So we want this interaction that when we open the modal, the chat widget will be minimized. But not only when we will open it from the subscribe button, but also when we open it from our website, because as you may remember, we also have this open modal button here. So we want to minimize the widget always when the modal is open, no matter from which place the user actually opened it. So let's quickly add this part. We already have this handle open modal and handle close modal, which changes the is modal open state. So what we need to do now is actually track the widget visibility state. And this is the last thing that we'll be covering about the adapters. So going back to the actually adapters, React adapter documentation, we see that we have this visibility with 3 possible values: maximize, minimize, hidden. So it looks like something that we could be interested in this use case. So if we actually provide the LiveChat widget component a prop called visibility, and we will say, for example, that it is minimized, we can see that it actually is minimized. And if we change it to maximize, it will maximize thanks to HUD module reloading inside the next application. So we can't control the visibility by changing this prop in the typical React ways. So let's quickly add a new state, widget visibility, and set widget visibility. And let's initialize it with, let's say, maximized. And we will use this value as a prop. All right, so it is maximized. And as a matter of good practices, if we want to use a controlled component pattern inside of React, we should actually not only provide a value, but also hook up to the change events. So we are providing the state to the visibility, but also we should hook up to the on visibility change callback. So whenever the visibility will be changed by the user, for example, our state itself also will be changed. So we will not lose the track of it. It will not desynchronize. So we should have here a visibility, and let's just say set widget visibility to visibility. Now it should still work, but if we, for example, just quickly, let's say as h3, display the widget with visibility to widget visibility, we see that it is maximized, but when user minimize the widget, our state is synchronized now with the widget state, but we also can enforce change of this state because this is our internal component state, so we can set it and change the actual visibility. So let's now use it inside the handle close and open modal button. So let's say that whenever we are opening the modal, we would like to have widget maximized, but whenever we close the modal, we are going to have the widget minimized. And let's see how it's working. We have maximize widget. I'll open it from our rich message button. All right, I have done that opposite way. Sorry. We want to have minimize widget when we open the model and maximize widget when we close the model. Let's try it again. So it is maximized initially. We open the model from the chat widget, which chat widget was minimized. We see in the background that the text was changed, so the state is indeed tracked. And when we close this model, the widget is maximized again. But also it works because it uses the same state that is provided to the reactive property of the LiveChat widget component. It works no matter where you actually trigger this action. All right. So I think that it will be all. So thank you for participation. We are a couple minutes after the 6 p.m. So now you can ask any questions on the chat. I'll look more carefully now on the chat and see if you have any questions so I could answer them. And once again, thank you very much for your participation. Join our Discord server and join our developer program. Thank you.